Trash and empty beer cans whirl around the outside of the apartment. There's lots of moving boxes stacked up outside the door. Luis enters. He sets down a moving box. Cameron moves up to his shoulder, shows him pulling out a card. He tries to unlock the door. Struggling, Jimena enters with another box. She looks at him. He finally unlocks the door and says, "What a dump." She looks at the door and says, "It has character." And then she pushes past him into the apartment. Luis, frustrated, enters in after her. They both enter the apartment. Jimena's quick to look around, and she goes straight back to one of the bedrooms down the hall. Luis, still kind of frustrated, looks around. He sees something on a table. It's wrapped in ribbons. He goes over, he sees a note. He reads what it says. He starts untying the ribbons, and he sees that it's the 2 jugs of rodenticide. He's dissatisfied, and he hears the squeaks of mice from the floor. In the bedroom, Jimena enters. She sees it's really empty. There's only something covered in a sheet in the corner. She looks out a window, and all of a sudden she hears something from above. A bunch of creaks. Camera follows. Startled, she's trying to figure out where in the room it's coming from. And then Luis enters, startles her again. She gets kind of mad and exits the bedroom. We see the 2 jugs of rodenticide fall into a trash can. We see Jimena brush off her hands and walk from the trash can to the other side of the kitchen. She starts digging through another box, and then Luis re-enters. Luis sees the jugs in the trash. Jimena takes out a piece of food and puts it next to a little hole in the counter. Luis is kind of disgusted, and then Jimena exits behind him back into the bedroom. Luis slams down the jugs of rodenticide next to the fridge. Back in the bedroom, Jimena is unpacking her things. She walks over to the thing covered in the sheet. She looks under it. She sees her hands are covered in dust, and she leaves the room. Back in the kitchen, the leaky faucet is dripping. Luis sticks a glass under it and fills it with water. He walks to the other side of the counter where all these papers are laid out. He's about to take a sip, and he sees how the water is murky. So he doesn't take a sip, he sets it down. He bends down to get another box of papers, and he knocks down the water out onto all the papers. He frantically searches the kitchen, can't find anything to clean it up with, so he walks back outside. Jimena re-enters the bedroom. She sees something has happened to her box that she was unpacking. She sees that it's all bloody. She starts to open it. She's getting scared. She sees what's inside. She's more scared than ever now. She starts backing up. Luis re-enters the apartment. He sees that the papers are all red now, and they're scattered all over the kitchen. No use for the towel anymore. He hears a creak from above him. He walks into the bedroom and is about to say, "Did you?" And then he sees Jimena inching away from the bloody box. They look at each other, and then they look up where they hear another creak from the ceiling. Luis looks up. Creaks continue throughout the ceiling. Camera pans back down to Jimena. And then they hear a creak from the sidewall, and they see a vent. And they both walk over to the vent. Jimena crawls closer. Luis tries to hold her back, but she keeps going. Camera goes into the vent, where we see the human eyes. Luis and Jimena are both really scared now, and they back up. Luis, back in the living room, digs through his things, pulls out a bat, looks around the room for where he wants to hit, looking for a noise, hears a rumble in the wall, points his bat. Jimena re-enters the living room, see what he's doing. He aims his bat, and he whacks it in. Jimena looks scared. She looks up. More noises echo throughout the ceiling. Luis is happy for a second, and then he hears the noises too and looks up. His hands quiver with the bat. They both stand in the center of the room, still hearing noises from all around. Jimena looks really worried. She walks past Luis, back to a vent by the table. She picks up one of the towels that Luis had brought in from earlier. She tries shoving it in the vent, but blood oozes out of the vent and onto her hands. She's horrified. She stands back up, shaking. More creaks and stomps continue to escalate. Luis spots something in the corner, the rodenticide by the fridge. Jimena's worried, staring at the wall. She turns around. She sees Luis with the rodenticide. Luis hands her one. She looks kind of worried, but then she takes it and smiles. And then, determined, she puts on a bandana on her face. Luis slams down one of the jugs onto the ground next to the wall. Jimena starts pumping the rodenticide. Luis does too. They both go to the center of the room and look up. They hear a large thump, and then a rolling noise into the wall by the hole. Camera goes into hole, where we see the monster's eyes have rolled back. And there's a large screeching noise escaping from the hole. Luis and Jimena look at each other, and then they run out of the apartment into the exterior. Jimena takes off her bandana. Luis throws the jugs into a trash bag, and then Jimena fans the air, and Luis bends down. Luis puts out a little plate of food and stands back up, and he hears happy little mice squeaking. He walks back over to Jimena, sitting on the ground. He sits next to her, and then they hold hands outside of the apartment.